Hey you. Yes, you. Are you a scientist? Did you just start your dream job doing research in a zebrafish lab in Madison, Wisconsin? But in-person training is problematic because of a global pandemic caused by a severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus? Are you worried that you'll be forced to wander the halls of the iBio Research Building unable to find any fish to feed? Do you live in constant fear of the pressure differential between the input and output of the mechanical filters climbing to 20 psi, causing a total system shutdown? Then you need this video training series, Feeding Dory and Other Zebrafish Husbandry. In this 4-part video series, you'll get training for feeding fish and general facility maintenance, maintaining filters, responding to alarms, raising babies. But wait, there's more! Act now and will include a 5th training video, changing the UV bulbs, absolutely free. That's 5 high-quality training videos, all absolutely free.
Training videos available while supplies last. Act now. Completion of training videos initiates your implied and continued agreement to help with fish feeding and facility maintenance in the Dory system during your continued employment.
Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. It's another busy day in the lab moving liquids from one tube to another. You're probably here to be trained on feeding fish in the red system, aka Dory. Let me just quickly move a few more drops from here to here and we'll head down the fish facility. Don't forget your mask. Welcome to room 26, a room where you will spend countless hours. Some of them you'll be appropriately dressed for Wisconsin winter, but not for a room that's 80 degrees. Pro tip, wear layers. The room is divided into a couple different sections. First, the nursery for babies. Then we have the adult racks where the adults are housed. We also have a kitchen. This is where the brine shrimp hatcheries are made. And we have the pump room where all the filters and the machinery that keeps the water flowing are housed. Now it's time to make some food. Start by identifying the 2 cones that you'll be using to make tomorrow's hatcheries. There are instructions on the wall for the appropriate amount of scoops to use for each hatchery. This changes depending on the number of fish we have in the facility, so be sure to check it every time. Turn on the water to the green hose, and then use the green hose to fill up both cones up to the fill line. Be sure to close the valves of each of the cones, or else you will get water everywhere, make a mess, and ain't nobody got time for that. Next, plug in the heaters. There should be 1 for each of the hatcheries. You'll want to verify that the heater is actually on by looking for the orange light. There it is. Now it's time for salt. Inside this bucket is a beaker, which we will fill to 100 mils. Perfect. And then we just pour it in. Next we can add some bubbles just to get things mixing a bit. Let's move on to shrimp. Again, consult your sheet. The shrimp are housed in this fridge. And we take out a can. Remove the lid. It's actually really hard to do with one hand. So don't hold your phone when you're doing this regularly. Then add the appropriate number of scoops of brine shrimp. Here Andy's making an AM cone, so he's only going to add 1 scoop. Okay, and we'll finish up by putting on the lid and adding bubbles. So go ahead and put the lid on the cone, and then stick the bubble hose directly in through the hole in the top, and then you'll want to make sure that the hose actually goes all the way down into the hole in the base of the cone. If you don't do this, you get salt buildup, unhatched cysts, and then when you go to drain it, it'll be clogged. Someone once described this to Andy as the worst carnival game. Alright, let's harvest some shrimp. You'll want to start by identifying that it's actually the cone you'll be using based on date and time. Remove the bubbles, clean that guy off if it's really dirty. Then you're going to want to wait for the brine shrimp to settle from the top to the bottom. We harvest the brine shrimp in this 4-liter bucket. You'll know it's the correct one because it's labeled brine shrimp. We bring the bucket over and then drain off just the orange live shrimp. You don't want any of the brown dead stuff. Then we take the bucket back to the sink over by the nursery. And then strain the shrimp and rinse out the salt water using the blue hose. I give it a little squeeze to get out the excess water, and then repeat. And I usually give the bucket a quick rinse as the brown cysts tend to collect in there. Invert the bag into the bucket and use the blue hose to collect the brine shrimp into the bucket. And then fill the bucket with water to the density of your choice. For AM feeds I usually do 1 liter, for PM feeds I do 3 liters, but this is completely up to you once you get a feel for how much brine shrimp you're going to need to do their feeding appropriately. Next you'll want to plug in the bubbler and then add the bubbles to your collected brine shrimp. And then we fill up the squirt bottle with shrimp. We really need some new squirt bottles. And now it's time to feed. Make sure you pay attention to the density of the tank, as a tank with more fish will need more food, a tank with fewer fish will need less food. As a general rule of thumb, we feed the babies enough food that it should take them 10 minutes to eat it. But for adults, we feed them enough food that it should take them 5 minutes to eat it. Also, it's different. In the morning, we feed brine shrimp to the babies, flake to the adults, but in the afternoon, we feed brine shrimp to everyone. The bucket of flake food is in the kitchen. Inside is a 50 ml tube that we fill all the way to the top with flake. And then we fill the squirt bottle with the flake food. Next, we use the water from the blue hose to fill up the squirt bottle. And then give the adults 5 minutes worth of flake food. This is actually the same video from earlier with brine shrimp, but you get the idea. And when you're done feeding the fish, unplug the bubbler, remove the hose, and then rinse out the bucket as well as the squirt bottle. So to clean the cones, we rinse off all the dead cysts, and then be sure to squirt inside the heater, as sometimes they collect there as well. And then take a scrub pad and wipe down all the sides. You can remove the heater. Give it a good rinse. Scrub again. rinse again, and then remove the heater and clean that too. Be sure to only rinse it with the green hose, not tap water. Also, don't change the temperature. The heater should always be set to 82 degrees. When you're done rinsing everything, put the heater back into the cone and replace it on the shelf. However, if this is an AM cone, you'll want to fill it with water, add a splash of bleach, put on the bleaching lid, and fill out today's date. You'll also want to drain yesterday's bleaching cone, give it a really good rinse, and put it back on the shelf. To feed paramecia to the babies, first ID the carboy that is in use, put the lid on, and give it a really good shake to make it homogeneous. Then grab the triple net, as well as a 1 liter beaker. And open the lid to release the vacuum, and then strain out as much paramecium as you need to feed all your babies. We feed 50 mils of paramecium per tank of babies. You'll know it's a baby that needs paramecium because it'll have red tape, as well as a sticker that tells you dates for important milestones. At 14 days, we switched to both paramecium and brine shrimp, and at 21 days, we switched to just brine shrimp. This information is listed on the wall, as well as other important information about how they should be handled at any given age. Rinse out the triple net using DI water and hang it back up to dry. And then give 50 mils of paramecium to every tank with red tape. Fun fact, paramecia is probably one of the top 10 worst smelling things I've ever encountered. We measure the density of the paramecia every day to make sure that it's not overgrowing or crashing. So to do this, again, put the lid on and give it a vigorous shake. Loosen the lid to release the vacuum, and then strain off at least 500 mils of the liquid. This helps ensure that you have a homogeneous sample that is representative of the entire carboy. Then grab a pipette bulb, as well as a petri dish with the corresponding number to the tank you're measuring. Fill the bulb to 0.5 mils. Great job, Andy. And then add droplets to the petri dish in any pattern you like. I recommend a swirl because it helps you keep your place. You don't want your droplets to be too big because if there's too many paramecia and they're moving around, it's going to be really difficult to count. Please ignore my incorrect usage of the singular and plural forms of paramecia. Pour back the unused paramecia to the carboy. And then rinse it out with DI water. And hang it to dry. Count the number of paramecia in each drop using a bright field microscope. They're the guys that look like little cucumbers that are moving around. Add up your totals, multiply it by 2, and that gives you the density of your paramecia per mil. We keep a record of these densities on our feeding checklist. If the density goes above 250, we dilute it. However, if it goes below 50, that's a sign that it might be crashing, so tell one of the grad students. There are more detailed instructions on the wall next to the blue hose that will tell you what to do in any given situation. We keep a log of the water chemistry, and we check it every day to make sure that the system is running properly. In the pump room, there is a computer, and on this screen you can check the temperature, pH, and conductivity. Jot these values down in the water chemistry binder. The system is set to automatically alarm if any of these values reach their upper or lower thresholds. It's nice to keep track of these values daily so that we can have a daily record of facility status. We can look out for any trends in any direction. Also, we're required by the vet to monitor this stuff. To measure the ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate levels, we use water test kits. The instructions for each kit are posted on the wall next to the door to the kitchen. To begin testing, grab 3 tubes and fill them to the line with system water. I usually use the hose from an empty tank. Follow the instructions for each kit, adding the correct number of drops and shaking for the appropriate amount of time. The ammonia and nitrite levels are usually at 0, but nitrate is usually in the 40 to 160 range. Let's see if my sister-in-law Maria thinks things look normal.
Wow, that matches. That too. Ooh, good enough.
Thanks, Maria. Now let's check the flow. It's important to check that there is appropriate water flow to every tank in the system that has fish in it to make sure that oxygen is being introduced into the tank. This is what good flow looks like. This is what no flow looks like. And this is too much. If the water the fish are swimming in becomes devoid of oxygen, the fish will drown and the entire tank will die. And you don't want to be the person that drowned a fish. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoon, we clean the filter pads and screens and the sumps underneath the tanks. So start by removing the clear plastic cover and then remove the screen. Underneath will be the filter pads. These will be covered with excess food and fish poop. It's your choice if you want to wear gloves for this or not. These pads are important for trapping the extra stuff that would normally get into the mechanical filters in the pump room, so having these saves us from having to clean those as frequently. Take the pads and the screen to the kitchen sink. You got it, Marouche. It's hard to do one-handed. And then use the green hose to spray off the gunk. Now this doesn't actually look that bad, but usually they are pretty dirty. When you're done rinsing all the pads, squeeze out the water, and then take them back to the sumps. You'll want to lay out the pads flat. There's one, there's the other. Lay that flat as well. Next, you'll want to put on the screen. There's an arrow on the screen that shows you the direction in which the water should be flowing. So put it on and make sure that the water is flowing over the screen, not under, and secure it tightly. Lastly, put back on the plastic cover, and then you're done. Next, we'll want to check that the dosing tanks have enough liquid in them. So in the pump room, there are dosing tanks for conductivity and pH. You want to make sure that they're both filled to at least 40 liters. If they are not, you'll have to refill them. There are instructions on how to do so on the wall behind these tanks. So that one looks great. So does this one. You'll also want to make sure that there's enough water in the RO reservoir, and we usually mark that line with orange tape. Now to check the flow in the system. This value should be above 50. When it drops below this, it's usually a good indicator that the mechanical filters will need to be changed within the next 24 hours. This results in a high differential between the pressure in and the pressure out, and the system will alarm and eventually shut off. So to prevent that, we'll need to change the filters. And that's not a task we assigned to feeders, so we won't go over that in this video. The tasks shown in this video are split across AM and PM feeding slots. Consult the feeding checklist for more details. Well, now you're done. Before you leave, turn off the blue hose, turn off the green hose, and then close the door to the kitchen. Thanks for joining us and learning how to feed fish in the Dory system. We hope this video was helpful and informative. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. We look forward to meeting you and having you join us in the fish facility.
Oh, good morning. Seems like you come here for some extra tips of the fish facility, Dory. Well, first thing I like to do in the morning is feed the fish. But it's important to note that zebrafish mate right away in the morning, so it's important to be quiet during their special reproductive time. Oh, you're still here. Well, another important point is to be as efficient as possible in the fish facility. So I like to double fist my brine shrimp feeding bottles. That way you can do 2 tanks at one time. Well, at this point, you should just stay for lunch. We're having sushi. I think the most important tip I can give you, though, is to please keep up with the puns on the whiteboard on the outside door. I don't trout that they've scaled back on the puns since I've left, but oh well. If you cod keep up, though, it'd be pretty sick nasty. So you're going to krill it, and welcome to the Dory Fish Facility.